Could have a spot thunderstorm, but the odds are low. High of 95 degrees. For Friday night, clear sky, more humid, quiet overall, low 74. And for Saturday, could have a thunderstorm, 95. For Sunday, a few pop afternoon storms, but nothing widespread, says Dave, and a high of 93. Right now, downtown at the Arch, we've got a clear sky. It's 85. I'm Michael Calhoun, KMOX News.
The following is a KMOX Sports Special.
Our city! Our spirit!
Welcome to the City Spotlight.
It's in! City goal!
Now, your host, Jen Siess, on America's Sports Voice, KMOX.
Welcome into the KMOX Radio Downtown Studios. I mean, we do both on both stations. KMOX covers City, St. Louis City SC, and all things soccer, as well as on Y98, we have the City SC game broadcasts every time the team has a game. I'm Jen Siess, and we'll be your host tonight for the City Spotlight. Kyle Sixta is here with me on the controls, and we're going to get to St. Louis City SC. We'll do that starting at the bottom of the hour. We'll start with Dale Schilly, like we always do, our game analyst, and talk about cities, where they go from their Houston loss at facing Real Salt Lake. But first, let's talk about some big soccer happening for the U.S. national side. The men's team and the women's team, both victors. The first we'll talk about happened right in our backyard here in St. Louis at Energizer Park. The U.S. men's national team faced off against Guatemala and came out victorious.
Jose Pinto will lift it long. That's Walker Zimmerman to win the header. And that is it. And the U.S. is headed to Houston for the Gold Cup final.
The 18th edition of the CONCACAF Gold Cup semifinals with U.S. and Guatemala were last night. Mexico faced off with Honduras. Mexico won 1-0. Honduras, by the way, if you are following that, did have an upset against Panama to get to this point. Joining me now to talk about it is Jeff Carlisle. He's a soccer reporter for ESPN. I believe Jeff was in St. Louis. Hope you enjoyed Energizer Park, and thanks for joining me tonight.
Yeah, anytime, Jen. Yes, I was there. Although I got up bright and early this morning to head to Houston today.
Oh, my goodness. So on the road for you. Well, I got to ask first, just I don't know if you've had the opportunity to visit Energizer Park, but how does our stadium stack up? Did you like the environment?
Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah, I've been there for a couple of men's national team games there before. I was there back in November for the Jamaica game.
Okay, yeah.
And, so it was, definitely not my first time at that venue. So, it's one of those, I think it's kind of a perfectly sized venue. It packs a lot of noise, even though it's, I say only in air quotes, only 22,000 seats. But, I think MLS over the years has really gotten it right in terms of, how to construct those stadiums, where to put them. And like I said, they really keep the noise in, and certainly there were a lot of Guatemala fans there yesterday doing just that.
I'll tell you what, you read my mind, because that was my next question. The fact that, Mauricio Pochettino, head coach for the U.S. men's national team, talking about the fact that it did not feel like a home game, right? So the U.S. players needed to be coached up a little bit by our own, St. Louis's own Tim Ream, about the fact that, hey, this doesn't feel like a home game. You've got very, very passionate Central American fans who come, South American fans do it as well, who will travel to find their team. And sure, the Guatemalan fans surely did and showed up in force.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been to places like Guatemala City and, San Salvador and El Salvador, and it was definitely taking me back to those trips because those fans are super passionate. They get behind their team 100%. And yeah, it was an amazing atmosphere. And I think you're right. It definitely threw a lot of the U.S. players for a loop, at least the younger ones. And, but, like you said, Tim Ream kind of got them together, was able to kind of help them focus and get composed. And certainly they got off to a great start. But, they had to hang on for a little bit for dear life there at the end.
Yeah, they certainly did. And of course, we wouldn't be doing our job if I didn't mention the fact that Diego Luna, it's going to be a boon for St. Louis City, who heads to Real Salt Lake to play, because they're not going to be with Diego Luna. It's always fun as a soccer fan to simultaneously, not want him to get the ball when he's playing against my MLS team, but want him to get the ball when he's playing for my national team, and how dangerous he was. Jeff, I got to ask you, with Christian Pulisic not playing playing, and it makes me wonder if that is sometimes then an opportunity for a player. We already know that Diego Luna is capable, but sometimes when you have a star or stars that aren't available for whatever reason, it forces players to step up, and it seems like that gave Diego Luna, who we all know is capable, but the opportunity to do just that last night with goals on the board, I think, in the 3rd minute, and then not for long later at the 14th.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a player that has definitely been on the rise. I mean, he was the Young Player of the Year in MLS last year. Very shifty. Obviously he's not the tallest guy out there, but incredible close control. And I think you saw just that on the second goal. He kind of duped the guy to the left, then back to the right, and then just hit an absolute laser into the net. And, he's definitely one of those up and coming players. And that's, when some of the top players with the U.S. men's national team, for whatever reason, whether it's Club World Cup commitments or whether there's injuries or what have you, that's going to open the door for somebody else. And, I think Diego Luna is one of those guys that has really, sees that opportunity. I mean, it started back in January when everyone saw him get that bloody nose against Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And he kept playing. And he's kind of, he's got one of those infectious attitudes. He's always super positive, always upbeat. And, it's not a surprise to me to see him kind of get this opportunity and take advantage with a couple of assists against Trinidad and Tobago. And then, the last couple of games, he's chipped in with actual goals. And he's just a real live wire out there. And he just plays at a speed that I think is just so much faster than even some of his teammates. And
yeah,
so,
he's got quick feet.
it's
really quick feet.
Quick feet, but also a quick mind. And I think at international level, that's what really can make can make a huge difference.
Yeah, 100%. Something I also want to ask you about, too, and I've got actually several of your articles up. For people who are listening, make sure you look for Jeff Carlisle. Jeff or Jeffrey on socials, and Carlisle, Carlisle, writing for ESPN. You have been definitely busy with your articles. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, because you're so in touch with the team, is looking for maybe that team identity. I feel like only 3 or 4 weeks ago on this show, I had on Mike Sorber, who used to be a U.S. men's national team player. He's here in St. Louis. He was on the coaching staff for a while. And we were talking about the fact, Jeff, that we didn't feel like the team maybe knew its identity or knew what it wanted to do. And then you go to the game that they had against Costa Rica, where things got a little scrappy with the PKs, and the team really had to back one another up and really kind of have each other's back, so to speak. Do you think that maybe something like that is a blessing in disguise when there are others against you, whether it's another team, Costa Rica, or the pundit saying, hey, that wasn't good enough? Tim Ream also coming out and saying, shame on you that it wasn't good enough. We made it to the final, and that's all that counts. Is that what this team needs, or reasons to band together? And is that happening right now?
I think it's definitely happening right now. I mean, and I think, it's kind of a unique group. I mean, it's got some veteran players, when you talk about Tim Ream, but it's also got Tyler Adams. It's got, Chris Richards, who's coming off a season in the Premier League with Crystal Palace when they won the FA Cup. And then you've got younger guys like a Diego Luna, like a Patrick Agyemang. You've got guys like Alex Freeman, and then Max Arston, on the outside, and Matt Freese in goal. So, I think it's a unique group, and it was kind of thrown together a little bit. They hadn't had a lot of history with each other. And so what I think we've seen over the past, month or so is you've seen these guys develop a chemistry. You've seen them get to know each other. You're seeing that on the field, and you're seeing that in kind of some I want to say non-soccer ways. Like I think you were referencing Malik Tillman missing that penalty that Costa Rica players are getting in his face, and every single one of the U.S. players backed him up. I think I'm trying to memory serves. I mean, Matt Freese was like running 100 yards to maybe get in there. So it's and you always love to see that, and I think a little bit of that has been missing. When the full team is together. And so I think what's going to be really interesting going forward, win or lose in the final on Sunday, when more of the first team gets together in September for that international window, what's it going to be like? I mean, is this something that Pochettino and some of the players are going to be able to build on, when the regulars come back in, or is it going to take a little bit of time to kind of maybe reconstruct it a little bit? So I think that's, my eyes are certainly going to be on that when, the friendly start to get played in the fall.
Yeah, last question for you is, of course, you just mentioned it, the final for the Gold Cup on Sunday, U.S. facing off with Mexico. That will be 6 p.m. our Central Time from Houston, where you are currently right now. What are the U.S.'s chances? And besides a result, even if the result doesn't go their way, what does success look like for this team that's building towards the World Cup?
I think the U.S. goes into that game as underdogs. I think like I said, there are a few veteran U.S. players there, but again, it's a lot of young players too and this is kind of the first time they're going through this. Whereas I think Mexico's team, is much more composed of veterans. I mean, they've got a little bit more experience heading into a game like this, and it's going to be a tough atmosphere. I mean, people thought that the game yesterday was a tough atmosphere. I mean, it's going to be, upwards of 70,000 fans at NRG Stadium, and most of it's going to be Mexico fans. I mean, the U.S. is just going to have to accept that. And so that'll be another, I think, beneficial experience for these guys as they kind of get used to international soccer. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, certainly you want the U.S. team to win. I mean, that's like the ultimate success, and that's what they're going to be gunning for. But I think if you're Mauricio Pochettino, I think you've gotten some answers to some questions. You've got like a handful of guys who maybe weren't in the picture before, but are in the picture now. And so, I'm thinking of guys like Luna, like Ajameng.
Yeah.
I think those guys are on the radar now in a way that they weren't before this tournament. And so, listen, it's the old cliche, you can only play the team that's in front of you. So, people might say, oh, well, it's these B-sides in the Gold Cup and it's only CONCACAF, but, that's how you get international experience. I mean, that's how you got to take those initial steps and try to take those initial tests and pass them. And I think that's what these players have done. And so I think for Mauricio Pochettino, I think that the tournament has already been a success, but, he's a winner. I mean, this guy wants to win in every single thing that he does. So, he'll be certainly aiming to come out with a victory on Sunday.
Jeff, thanks for your time tonight and have a happy holiday weekend. I hope for the best game for you on Sunday.
All right. Appreciate it.
That was Jeff Carlisle. He's a soccer reporter for ESPN. Make sure you give him a follow on social medias at Jeff or Jeffrey Carlisle, Carlisle. And you can find him also on ESPN. Writes great articles. Make sure you give him a follow. With the U.S. national team play in mind, we're going to flip over to the women's side of the game. The U.S. has a winner there also. St. Louis native and former women's national team player Ruth Harker will join us to talk about that next on KMOX.
Attention, small business owners. Do you need funding for your business? At LendSeek.com, we provide revenue-based working capital programs from $20,000 to $1 million. So whether it's funding for inventory, equipment, expand
Focus on the road.
As a passenger, you have the power to prevent an accident. There are 1,000 ways to stop a distracted driver. Choose one.
A message from CTIA.
Now, back to the City Spotlight.
Our city, our spirit.
Once again, Jen Siess on KMOX.
Progress was made. Wins were gained along the way as well. Goals were scored. And that is it. 3-0, the final score. Job done for Emma Hayes and the United States.
Another U.S. soccer win here. Jen Siess on the City Spotlight for you. We did, just in the first segment, we talked about the U.S. men's national team, the winners last night at Energizer Park. There was another national team player. It was the women. They were in Washington, D.C., a dominant 3-0 win over Canada in that friendly. It's the 5th straight shutout win with goals last night by Sam Coffey, Claire Hutton, that was her first international goal, I believe, and the late game killer by Yasmin Ryan. Here to talk about it with me now is Ruth Harker, St. Louis native and former U.S. women's national team player. She's an OG, y'all. She's from 1985, and Ruth joins me tonight. Ruth, what'd you think of the game last night?
Wow, I was just waiting for us to play someone in the top 10. I think that is a better litmus test. I mean, we've had, we played Ireland, yay, we beat them, but we've had 17 straight wins against Ireland. So, for me, that's great for some of these young players coming in. I think Emma Hayes is obviously in the player development process, broadening the player pool, that sort of thing. But you're seeing some real nice surprises coming out of what she's doing, and it's so important. Taking 59 different players from the beginning of this year that are unique now. Some, coming from but then you got someone like Yasmin Ryan, who is 26 years old, 2 championships, coming in and surprising us all. Just, the possession game, particularly against Canada. I mean, I was really happy to see that, to see someone like us playing a top 10 team and controlling possession and the pace of the game. I mean, the only thing we outshot them. We had more shots on goal, more corners, and the only things that we didn't have more of are more saves. So our team had 3, theirs had 5, and fouls. They had 13 and we had 5. You know how it is. You start getting a little frustrated, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what? The other thing that was so fantastic to me is having Rose Lavelle back in the game. It's just her energy, her leadership, her service is pinpoint, and when she doesn't score a goal, she's doing great things off the ball. So really like to see that. And, the whole goalkeeper, it's not even a crisis. It's an influx,
Right.
We have so many to choose from. But I really like that Joyce Tullis has been really strong, in the nets for us this year. And so I'm looking to see Casey Murphy back in that lineup somewhere along the line. But it's really great seeing these young players. I think what we need to do is probably bring in, Brazil, maybe England, some of these, not to lose confidence, but to show them what it really is to be in the top 10. And Canada was a good start.
You make some really great points, and a couple of things that I had in my notes were the fact that Emma Hayes, just in this game, made 10 changes from the starting lineup previously against Ireland. That was just on June 29th. So, she's not afraid to make changes. She's not afraid to experiment. And against Canada, looking at the U.S. being deadly with their speed of play, deadly on the transition, I would love to see that up against a stronger, even team than Canada, and have the players look at, like, what does really good look like, and how do you elevate your game, continue to be dominant against better and better competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think one of the great things that Emma's doing is she's not just drawing from the, and I like that she wants to bring in camps that combine the U23 and under, some of those players. I like that. But the fact that she picked up Yasmin Ryan, and Yasmin brings a lot of leadership because, she's 26, I think, something like that. But she won an NWSL championship both in Portland and in New York. And, championships follow leaders.
Yeah.
And I just think that's pretty stellar. And and she's a versatile player. She's a forward and a midfielder, so that makes it easier to tweak in a game scenario.
I'm glad that you said that because it seems to be a pretty good theme across both the men's and the women's national team of not only do you need your influx of young players, that is important to be able to run the game the way you want to run the game. It's a highly demanding cardio muscle game, but also the experience of veterans. You just mentioned Yasmin. Lola Banta featured in the game back here in St. Louis. It was great to see her in there. Tim Ream last night, right? Helps the guys keep it together when they realized, oh my gosh, we're in a stadium with mostly opposition fans. I think it's a real credit. You got to find that balance, of course, but really important to make sure those veterans are there and able to lead as well.
And Ream's really been he deserves more credit, I guess, is where I'm trying to go. He's like sort of taken for granted in a little bit of a sense, but he does bring that leadership. And, I really like to see that. I like to see the variety because, different stages, I go back to Yasmin Ryan again, because different stages require different things. And we all saw that in the last World Cup. And the fact that she, was looking, into the NWSL as a feeding ground, not just through Olympic development or, U.S. soccer youth teams, although she did go through those. But she was picked, out of at 26 years old.
Yeah.
So she's out of those, particular areas of development. So it's a different stage when you start playing U.S. soccer, against other countries. It's just a different frame of mind. It's a different mindset. It's different types of camps. So I just think it's pretty. I was glad that we smacked Canada. And took away a clean sheet. It was great.
100%. And last but not least, I can't let you get away without making sure we talk about some other very important veterans in the game, and that's your team. The 1985 women's national team started it all with Michelle Akers and yourself and more. And you ladies have started to build your own social media network, and I would love for you to share that with the listeners so they know where they can find the 85ers, just like you can find the 99ers and the 91ers. Let's make sure we follow the 85ers. Where can we get you?
Well, the first thing I want to say about that is we're the first team to ever incorporate as a team, and that's kind of fun. And the whole goal is to take care of those after us because a lot of these players, played, in earlier years that didn't pay well, and they spent, 10, maybe 15 years doing that,
Right.
And so we incorporated to bring something like, a legacy to livelihood for these people to help them. And tell our stories. And so they can find us at the 85ers team on Instagram. There'll be there's stories of each player, what they're doing, what they did afterwards, sort of their, how they perceive that historical moment in time. And it's been a fun year. Adidas, who was there to begin with, came back and sponsored us for launching our platform, and it's just been fantastic.
Thanks. I love hearing that. Thank you so much, Ruth. I appreciate you being on tonight. Happy birthday, by the way, and USA.
Yeah, USA. Hey, thanks, Jen, for having me. I appreciate it, and thanks to your listeners, okay?
You got it. That was Ruth Harker. She's a St. Louis native, of course, and former U.S. women's national team player. OGs, the 85ers, they are. Make sure you give them a follow on Instagram at the 85ers team. Pretty easy to follow, and by the way, on KMOX, we tagged their socials as well. More to come on the City Spotlight. We'll switch over to our hometown MLS team, St. Louis City SC, with a visit with Dale Schilly, City Academy Director and Game Analyst on Y98. Dale's up next on KMOX.
Join us for the next Business of Family Business on KMOX. I'm Debbie Monterey, along with my co-host Kevin Short of Clayton Capital Partners, and we're going to be talking
has been proudly servicing St. Charles County for over 30 years by always providing aggressive pricing, a massive inventory selection, and exceptional customer service. Buying from Suntrip means you get the best vehicle at the best price. Visit Suntrip Buick GMC today or visit us online at suntripbuickgmc.com and save more at Suntrip Buick GMC.
Cards manager Ollie Marble joins the Gas House Gang every Tuesday at noon. Sponsored by Siteman Cancer Center on the voice of the Cardinals. 104.1 FM, KMOX.
The next time we find a complete game, we'll find the 3 points that we desperately need. It goes back to when you attack, we attack as 11, and when we defend as 11. And there shouldn't be split groups on the field. We should all have a responsibility depending on where the ball sits with us or with the other team. If we're on the attack, players need to quickly ask themselves 2 questions. Can I impact the attack, and can I be in a position, maybe it's a run off the ball, maybe it's being a passing option, maybe it's taking a defender away from space that can clear up other space. If not, I think about the moment we lose the ball right away and how I can stop the defensive transition moment on us.
That was interim head coach for St. Louis City SC, Dale Schilly. Joining me now to talk about that is, interim coach David Critchley. Joining me now to talk about that is Dale Schilly, St. Louis City Academy Director. He works alongside David Critchley and our game analyst on Y98. Thanks for joining me, Dale. I felt like that David Critchley's comment right there was exactly how I felt about watching that game in Houston with St. Louis City trying to balance the attack and the defense.
I felt like you gave me another job.
I almost did. You're busy enough, though, aren't you? It's too close to the holiday weekend. I can't think straight.
That's right. No, I mean, I think that's a fair statement. You know, how do you attack as a unit? How do you defend as a unit? Or having to attack as a unit and having to defend as a unit, but how you get that done and how do you get that point across, and are the guys motivated to do the work that's necessary to do that in a difficult time and a difficult stretch is the challenge. So you have to, as a player, you have to be willing to get forward and do the running and the work that it takes to go and support or run in behind or get into the right position. It doesn't happen by not being invested in that moment. So that's the trick is how do you motivate the guys to get it done? If they're motivated, then how do you teach it so that they are getting it done? That's a difficult part of being in Critch's position.
And of course, too, I'm sure it doesn't go without noticing that when you have that unexpected substitution, you kind of go in with a plan. And that's not that everything always goes according to plan, but certainly Alfredo Morales coming out with we found out today, kind of a crack in his clavicle, along with other injuries the team faces, is that, you know, it may not always be the matter of effort. It's rotating in positions where you weren't planning to be. It wasn't part of the game plan, and you have to then adjust, of course, to the other team that's not going to give you their game plan. Is it effort all the time, and or sometimes just not knowing what my responsibility is on a day with a roster that never seems to look quite the same?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair question. Let's just say effort doesn't mean that there's a lack of commitment. Sometimes you just can't get there because you're just now rebounding off of an injury, or you haven't had minutes in a month, and now you're back into it, and you're trying to get yourself acclimated, or maybe it's the other way where you've had so many minutes, your legs are so heavy you can't get to where you're trying to get to. And Houston was the second game in 2 games after the group had a handful of days off, and you know, how does your body react to that? Are you fresh, or are you still sluggish from trying to get yourself going again? So there's a lot of factors that are involved in that, and certainly the injuries and player availability weighs into that, not just for the players that are directly impacted by the injury, but by the other players that are having to cover the minutes for the players that are unavailable and playing in weird spots.
Yeah. And, I will say we're looking ahead now to Real Salt Lake, and you guys, Joey, will be on the road, the team traveling again. So coming back from travel, going back on travel again, not kind of getting your regular one away, one home. On this particular one, going to some altitude and heading there. However, on a bright note, I know you were at the game for the U.S. men's national team who came out the winner, Diego Luna. I'm clapping for him as a national team fan. I'm also clapping for us that he's not going to be there for RSL this weekend.
Yeah. He is a different type of player for the league. He's got some character to him, which the league, I think, benefits from. He's got some attacking qualities that allows him to finish some chances. And, look, his second goal last night is one that he's dreamed about for years, which would be him coming in the half space on the left side, a guy overlapping him against one defender who bites on the overlap, and he can push it inside to his right foot and smack it. That is his dream goal. It's the one that he has scored many times in training and whatnot. The other one just comes from him outworking people and putting himself into a good position just in case something happens. So, yeah, he's got some attacking qualities. He's got a nose for the goal. He's a guy that not having on the field for us in our game will help us from that side. On the other side, he's not a great defender. He's not one that likes to get up and down the field and do all of the grunt work, but he certainly has some qualities on the attacking side that make him dangerous.
I can't tell you the number of times I've replayed that goal, by the way, for one of my kids to make sure he not only looks at the movement, but landing on that shooting foot, the second goal, it just was so perfect. And Diego Luna is funny, too, just watching him at training on Tuesday. If he could be another Indiana Vassilev, St. Louis City's former midfielder. It just that kind of the way he trains and the feistiness of his training just alone and the way he is in the field reminds me a little bit of Indy at one point in time.
Well, I think we all like players with personality, and he certainly has personality about him. And as I said, just that alone makes him stand out. And then you add the bit of flair that he brings to the game on the ball. That's something as well. But let's talk about some other guys on the national team. I thought Tim Ream was really good last night.
Yeah.
Not just because of being a local guy, but I would say really good. I think he had some really good moments, some really good forward defending moments early in the game. I thought he read a couple of balls well where he pressed up and intercepted some things, a couple of quality passes. And just knowing where he is physically and his age, that's tough to stay at a high level for that long of a period. So kudos to him in his career.
Yeah, 100%. So, Dale, you enjoy heading out to RSL City only with, gosh, if I counted it right, we have 14 games left. It feels like a lot still. Seems like we've also come so far. What are the chances? I know that Critch said in his soundbite there that you go in to win no matter what. You don't want to change the way you play. You don't want to change to try and just grab 1 point. You want to get all three. How does City go do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think two things from Salt Lake. They're very structured. So in the build-up, they'll build with three defenders. They'll put 2 6s in front of them. They'll have a 10 in front of the 2 6s. They'll try to bypass the first line and play little up, back, through combinations to put themselves in. And then when they do, then they'll step up real high and press the heck out of you and have a really intense press. So that's gonna be their tactic. Now, how do we prepare for that? How do you not bite on the up back? Can you hold your line, allow guys to run off sides? Can you get enough pressure that they can't find that 3-man combination that they're looking to try to uncork? And then, we just have to continue to try to connect some passes to establish ourselves in the front half of the field and create some chances of goal and try to continue to create more chances. Not just ball possession, not just connecting passes, but something that leads somewhere to a service, a cutback, something in the box where we can create more chances of goal than what we saw in Houston, and even what we saw, for a bit of Orlando.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we came back, but there was a stint in that second half, but we didn't create much.
All right, thanks, Dale. Look forward to hearing you and Joey Zanaboni from Real Salt Lake at 8 p.m. pregame on Y98 on Saturday.
Thanks, Jen.
Happy travels. Dale was Dale Schilly. He's St. Louis City Academy Director and our game analyst for Y98 Games, all city games there. Pre-game starts, like I said, at 8 p.m. on Saturday, with them being on Mountain Time, and then kickoff at 8:30. One more segment to go. Hang around. You'll get a preview of our next Y98 game player profile with City defender Michael Venzel. He's up next on KMOX.
Hey, it's Debbie Monterey, and between now and the end of the summer, chances are that you or someone you know is in the market to buy or sell a home. And like me, you probably know a few realtors. Well,
$25rhino.com.
No pain, don't Rhino. Go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Now, back to the City Spotlight.
Our city, our spirit.
Once again, Jen Siess on KMOX.
Last segment of the City Spotlight. Jen Siess here with you, and we turn now to our next game player profile. Every Y98 City broadcast, we have an interview with a player, and this time we had it with Michael Wenzel. We know that he signed with City 2 in 2023, brought up to the first team in 2024. We haven't seen much of Michael due to some injury, but he made his first start of this season recently against Houston. We caught up with him on Tuesday after City training, by the way, and just before the U.S. men's national team took the training pitch to catch up with Michael on his journey to date.
I think my first start for this team was also in Houston, but that was CONCACAF, maybe March or something like that.
So how does it feel to be back in the starting lineup?
Oh, good. It's been a tough year, not only for me, I think for us all. For me personally, because I haven't had so much playing time, but yeah, I also had some problems with my hamstring, my nerve, so yeah. Just try to fight through it, and now I feel much better.
Are you working through that still, or?
Yeah, no, it's much better now. Yeah, it took me some weeks. I was able to train, but never really felt like I was at 100%. But since a couple of weeks, I feel like I'm a lot better. So, yeah. Definitely good to get some minutes, and yeah, obviously not the result we wanted, but yeah, we'll try to win on Saturday in Salt Lake.
So walk me through it's not that you haven't played center back before, that's your position. We've got somebody talking to JGR right now who's done center back before. I won't lie, when I got the starting lineup, I was like, oh, okay. Michael Wenzel, JGR, you got Jay, Thomas Totland. It's a back line that we haven't seen before. Yeah. What kind of preparation did you and JGR have to run those positions together?
Not a lot, to be honest. We train together every day, so yeah, it doesn't really matter who's playing against or next to you. Obviously, you try to prepare the opponent and try to see who's your striker you're playing against, the wingers and stuff, but other than that, preparation was totally normal, like every game.
Yeah, I was watching you. I actually traveled with you guys in the team, and so I was able to watch you from the booth pretty close. And I could sort of, when the crowd allowed me to, hear you guys not only working together, but working very strongly with Roman. What kind of partnership does that have for you as a center back, with your center back and, of course, Roman Berkey behind you and your wings?
Yeah, I mean, having the best goalkeeper in the league behind you is not too bad, you know. We definitely had some discussions of when to make blocks and when to let Roman do his thing and try to just like cut off the angle and give him space to operate. So that's definitely something you always have to work between center backs, between goalkeepers, because I feel like we had a lot of goals this year where we try to make blocks but then get like the balls through the legs and stuff like that. So that's communication we have before the game. But yeah, other than that, it's just like normal game communication, I would say.
So when you look on the outside looking in, which maybe in some ways you have been able to as well, since you haven't been able to appear as much, that change with Dave Critchley and kind of getting back to City's roots of attacking, but also then now managing defense, bleeding goals, you don't want that to happen. How is that coming along, you think, for you and the team? It's a progression, of course.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's always both sides of the ball. We were definitely defensively solid in the beginning of the year. Didn't concede a lot of goals, but our attacking quality was lacking a little bit. Not blaming any players, just like if you spend a lot of time defending away from the other goal, then the distance to the other goal is very far, and creating chances sometimes is a bit more difficult. Now we score a lot more goals, but we have conceded a lot more as well. So it's always like finding that balance. I think take the good progression we have definitely on the ball with us to the next couple of games, but also finding that balance between when to take risks and when to maybe deny goal scoring opportunities.
We're recording here on a Tuesday at training after traveling on the weekend, and as I walked up, it was as spirited and loud and competitive and positive as ever. How do you guys manage those team vibes when you're not getting the results that you want?
Yeah, I've said it before. The funny thing about MLS is we know that we won't end up winning the league after the regular season, but it's still possible for us to make the playoffs. And if we make the playoffs, then everything resets and then cards reshuffle, you know, so nothing's over yet. And that's why we just have to keep going. Obviously, like I said, the results are not on our side now, but that can change very quick. So just moving forward.
Got a shout out, of course, City 2. You've appeared there as well. They're on a hot streak. I think it's 6 games won. What's the secret to success with the second team?
Yeah, I haven't spent a lot of time with them this year, but obviously we see each other in the building a lot and the guys are the same. So I feel like they just have the very, very big advantage of playing at City Park, or now Energizer Park. Having that crowd behind you makes a big difference in MLS Next Pro, because wherever you go, it's nothing like here. So definitely that helps a lot. And then they score a lot of goals, which also helps. Individuals like Mikhail, Brendan McSorley, who also played well with the first team whenever he got the chance. They're just very energetic, and that's very helpful.
And last but not least, we have to call it the fact that also today on this Tuesday, the U.S. national team is here training. They're getting ready for Gold Cup semifinal. What does that mean to you as players, whether it's your national teams or not, when they come into your facility and are training alongside?
Yeah, it's always fun. I mean, in soccer, you always see each other a lot of times, and you play against each other. Or, for example, Alex Freeman and I, we played together in the U23 in Chile 2 years ago. So seeing him again and stuff like that is fun, because you don't see each other that often. I talked to some guys after Orlando game, and he was missing. So yeah, very, very nice. And we obviously watched the game on Wednesday, I believe. So yeah, hope they win. Yeah.
And they certainly did. Great prediction, Michael Wenzel. He was our City defender, and he is going to be our next pregame player profile. That'll do it for the City Spotlight. Thanks for joining us this hour. Thanks to Kyle Sixta for all his helps on the controls. The next MLS regular season game for City is away at 8:30 on Y98, 8 p.m. pregame. Have a happy and safe 4th of July. I'm Jen Siess, and you've been listening to KMOX.
Hi, I'm Andrew Suntrup. For over 30 years, St. Louis families have trusted Suntrup Ford Westport and Suntrup Ford Kirkwood